Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Yusuf Zaini and this is a series Payment Gateway for Noobs. In the first part, we are going to discuss about some basic terminology and flow. So let's take this as an example. I'm sure everyone would have visited Domino's Pizza at least once. So consider that there are three different areas in Bangalore. One is BTM layout, one is Electronic City, and one is HSR layout. And all three areas have this Domino's outlet. So as a person, like let's say I go to the Electronic City Domino's outlet. There I select one of the pizza, I order it, and then for the payment, uh, during the payment, they'll ask me for my card. I give them my card, they swipe it in the machine, I put in my uh, PIN, and then the payment is done and the transaction is over, and I get my pizza. So this is not only with the Domino's, but any outlet, like you go to any shopping mall or any other place, like you will have the similar scenario. But just for understanding and getting some terminologies, I've taken an example of Domino's Pizza over here. So in this entire scenario, Domino's Pizza is the organization because it's the head, and each of this outlet here in different areas can be called merchant. And each of this merchant will have one or more of these devices installed where a person can make the payment. And these devices are called either terminals, point of sale, or POS. Different people call it different names. Moving on the left hand side, you see a close-up shot of one of the device or terminal. And on the right hand side, you see a sample credit card. I think everyone is familiar with this, right? So in the credit card, usually you'll see a bank name, the person who has given you this. The bank is the one, the name of the bank is the one who has provided you this credit card. At the bottom, you'll see some name like Visa, MasterCard, Amex, or some other. And on the left hand side, if you see this terminal, you'll see the manufacturer. In this case, it's Verifone. And then there will be a bank name. So the bank name is the one like who owns this terminal. So that bank's name is mentioned over here. So again, in this case, Standard Chartered is called the issuer. Visa is called the payment scheme or scheme. And the device on which you are swiping this card is called the acquirer. Not the device, but the bank who owns this device where you are swiping this card is called the acquirer. And of course, we are familiar with this terminology now that this is a terminal. So there can be basically two scenarios which can happen. So let's consider the first one where the acquirer is Axis Bank and the issuer is HDFC Bank. So you have this HDFC credit card, which is a Visa signature card, and then you are swiping it on the Axis Bank terminal to make a payment. So what happens? As soon as you uh, as soon as you enter the PIN, the transaction goes to Axis Bank, and then Axis Bank gateway, that is acquirer gateway, it checks and understands that the card which is used here is not Axis Bank card. It is from some other bank. So they cannot do the validation. They cannot complete the transaction on their side. So they have to forward it to the bank to do the validation, to check whether this card is valid, whether this card has enough balance in it to do this transaction. So for that, they need to send it to HDFC. But each bank cannot be talking to the other bank directly, right? So for that, we have a mediator in between, which is the payment scheme. So in this case, it's Visa. In some other case, it can be MasterCard or Amex or any other such payment scheme. So the Axis Bank, from Axis Bank, the transaction will move to Visa. Now Visa will see that, okay, fine, this credit card is issued by HDFC, so it will forward it to the HDFC, and then HDFC will do its validation and then send back the response to Visa, and Visa will send back the response to Axis Bank gateway, and then that gateway is gonna send back the information to the terminal, and that is where you see that information that the transaction is successful, and then the receipt gets printed. So this is a normal flow. So it's called type 1 flow, also called off us flow. And the reason why it is called off us is because the transaction is happening outside the network of the acquirer. So in this case, Axis Bank was the acquirer, and actually the validation is happening outside its network, in HDFC's network. So that's why it is also called off us transaction. Now the second type is on us transactions, where let's say that you are owning an Axis Bank credit card and you are swiping it on the Axis Bank machine, or the acquirer is Axis Bank. So in this case, we do not need to forward this transaction to Visa to, do the validation or send it across to some other bank and all. So when the card and the acquirer both are same, you actually save a lot of cost. Not a lot of cost, but rather there's some cost involved when the payment scheme also comes into picture. So you save that. So the validation and everything is done on the Axis Bank side itself. And once the validation is done, it sends back that the transaction is successful or failure. In whichever case, you see that information displayed on the screen and the corresponding message gets printed into the receipt. So that's all for this, our first session, where we just wanted to discuss on some of the basic terminologies and some very, very basic flow as to how the transaction works. In the subsequent sessions, we'll get into more depth as to see how this transaction flows and how it works. See you in the next session.